Welcome back, guys, to my channel. Today, I've got a spine-chilling tale that will send shivers down your spine. So, grab your popcorn and buckle up, because this story is about to take you on a terrifying journey into the unknown. First story. I wake up to the sound of footsteps outside my window. It's the middle of the night, and the darkness wraps around my house like a suffocating blanket. My heart pounds in my chest as I strain my ears to listen for any other sounds. Silence. Just the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. I try to shake off the feeling of unease, chalking it up to my overactive imagination. But then I hear it again. The unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, crunching over the gravel path outside. My stomach knots with fear as I realize someone is out there, lurking in the shadows just beyond my window. I dare not move, afraid to draw attention to myself. But curiosity gets the better of me, and I inch closer to the window, peering out into the darkness. At first, I see nothing but the swaying branches of the trees in the moonlight. Then, a figure emerges from the shadows, tall and menacing, their features obscured by the darkness. I recoil in horror, my breath catching in my throat. Who could be out there at this hour? And why are they skulking around my house? My mind races with possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. Could it be a burglar, intent on breaking in and wreaking havoc? Or something far more sinister, something beyond my wildest nightmares? I consider calling the police, but fear grips me like a vice, paralyzing my every move. What if whoever is out there hears me? What if they decide to come inside and finish what they started? I'm trapped in a nightmare of my own making, helpless and alone in the darkness. As the minutes tick by like hours, the figure outside my window seems to grow bolder, drawing closer with each passing moment. I can feel their eyes boring into me, their presence looming over me like a dark cloud. And then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they vanish back into the night, leaving me trembling and alone in the darkness. Morning comes, like a blessed reprieve, the sunlight chasing away the shadows of the night. But the memory of the figure outside my window lingers like a stain on my soul. Who were they? And what did they want from me? I may never know the answers, but one thing is for certain. I'll never feel safe in my own home again. Second story. As I sit here, penning down the horrors I've endured, I can feel the chill of fear creeping into my bones once more. You see, it all began innocently enough when I moved into my new apartment. The neighborhood seemed quaint, the neighbors friendly enough. But little did I know the darkness that lurked behind the facade of normalcy. It started with subtle signs, things that I brushed off as mere coincidences. Strange whispers in the dead of night, shadows flitting across my window when no one was there, and the sensation of being watched, even in the privacy of my own home. I chalked it up to my overactive imagination, refusing to acknowledge the sinister truth that lay just beneath the surface. But then, I met her, my neighbor from hell. She seemed harmless enough at first, a sweet old lady with a penchant for gardening and baking cookies. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to notice something off about her, something unsettling that sent shivers down my spine. It was in the dead of night when I first caught a glimpse of her true nature. I awoke to the sound of chanting, a guttural incantation that echoed through the walls of our shared apartment building. Curiosity got the better of me, and I ventured into the hallway, following the sound to her door. What I saw there will haunt me until the end of my days. The door cracked open ever so slightly, revealing a scene straight out of a nightmare. The room was bathed in an otherworldly glow, shadows dancing across the walls as the old woman stood in the center, her eyes glazed over with madness. And that's when I saw it. A grotesque creature lurking in the shadows, its form twisted and contorted, its eyes burning with unholy fire. It whispered to her in a voice that sent shivers down my spine, urging her to do its bidding. I wanted to run, to flee from the horror unfolding before my eyes, but I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear. And then, as suddenly as it began, the chanting stopped, the glow faded, and the door slammed shut with a resounding thud. I never spoke of what I saw that night, too afraid of what might happen if I did. But the nightmares followed me, haunting my every waking moment with visions of darkness and despair. And now, as I sit here recounting my tale, I can feel the presence of that malevolent force looming over me, waiting patiently for the moment when it can claim me as its own. So heed my warning, dear reader, and beware the darkness that lurks in the hearts of men, for it is a force more powerful than any we can imagine. Third scary story. It was a chilly evening in October when I first noticed him, the man who lived next door. He was tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to follow me wherever I went. His presence sent a shiver down my spine, but I brushed it off as mere paranoia, attributing my unease to the unfamiliarity of living in a new neighborhood. But as the days turned into weeks, my discomfort only grew. I would catch glimpses of him standing in his yard, watching me with an intensity that bordered on obsession. And then there were the strange noises that echoed from his house at all hours of the night, eerie whispers that seemed to seep through the walls like tendrils of darkness. I tried to avoid him, to pretend that he didn't exist, but it was impossible to ignore the feeling of dread that settled over me like a thick fog. It was as if he were a magnet, drawing me inexorably closer with each passing day. One evening, as I was returning home from work, I noticed something peculiar. The lights in his house were flickering erratically, casting eerie shadows across the yard. Intrigued, I approached cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. As I drew nearer, I heard the sound of chanting, low and guttural, like the murmurs of a forgotten language. My curiosity got the better of me, and I peered through the window, expecting to see some kind of occult ritual unfolding within. But what I saw was far worse than anything I could have imagined. The man was standing in the center of the room, surrounded by flickering candles and strange symbols etched into the floor. And in front of him, kneeling in supplication, was a figure cloaked in shadow. A being of pure darkness, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. I gasped in horror, stumbling backward in disbelief. What kind of creature had he summoned, and for what purpose? My mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. I knew then that I had to get away, to escape from this nightmare before it consumed me whole. But as I turned to flee, I felt a cold hand close around my wrist, pulling me back with a strength that belied the man's frail appearance. I struggled against his grip, but it was no use. He was stronger than he looked, his eyes burning with a madness that chilled me to the bone. "Stay," he whispered, his voice a mere whisper in the darkness. "You belong to us now." With a surge of adrenaline, I broke free from his grasp, stumbling backward into the night. I ran as fast as my legs would carry me, the sound of his laughter echoing in my ears like a curse. I never returned to that neighborhood, too afraid of what might happen if I did. But the memory of that night haunts me still, a reminder of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of our reality, waiting patiently to claim its next victim. Fourth scary story. As I sit here, penning down the terrifying ordeal I survived, I can still feel the tendrils of fear clutching at my heart, threatening to drag me back into the darkness from which I barely escaped. It all began innocently enough, a new chapter in my life as I embarked on my college journey. Little did I know that my dreams would soon turn into a nightmare beyond my wildest imagination. It was a crisp autumn day when I first laid eyes on the apartment, a quaint little building nestled on the outskirts of town. The rent was affordable, the location convenient, and the landlady, Mrs. Thompson, seemed like a sweet old woman eager to welcome a new tenant into her home. I should have known then that something was amiss, that the warm smile on her wrinkled face hid a darkness that would soon consume me whole. But I was young and naive, eager to strike out on my own and leave the safety of my childhood home behind. The first few weeks passed without incident, the days blending together in a blur of classes and late-night study sessions. But then, strange things began to happen. Small at first, easily dismissed as mere coincidences. Objects would go missing, only to reappear in the most unlikely of places. Strange noises echoed through the walls at all hours of the night, and the air seemed to crackle with an unnatural energy. I brushed off my growing unease, chalking it up to the stress of college life and the unfamiliarity of living on my own. But deep down, I knew that something was terribly wrong, that I was not alone in my apartment as I had once believed. It was on a particularly stormy night that the truth was finally revealed to me, a truth more horrifying than anything I could have ever imagined. I awoke to the sound of scratching at my bedroom door, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end as a chill swept through the room. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest, before summoning the courage to investigate. What I saw on the other side of that door will haunt me until the end of my days. Mrs. Thompson, her eyes wide with madness, clutching a strange obsidian dagger in one hand. Before I could react, she lunged at me, the blade gleaming in the dim light of the hallway. I stumbled backward, my mind reeling with fear as I realized the truth. Mrs. Thompson was no sweet old woman, but something far more sinister, something beyond human comprehension. With a strength that belied her frail appearance, she pinned me to the ground, the dagger poised to strike. But just as the blade descended, something inside me snapped, a primal instinct for survival that surged through my veins like wildfire. I fought back with all the strength I could muster, wrestling the dagger from her grasp and plunging it into her chest with a cry of desperation. The old woman let out a guttural scream, her eyes ablaze with hatred as she collapsed to the floor, a pool of darkness spreading beneath her. But my victory was short-lived, for as I stood there, gasping for breath, I felt a presence looming over me, a presence far more ancient and malevolent than anything I had ever encountered. It was then that I saw it, a creature of pure darkness, its form shifting and twisting with every passing moment. It spoke to me in a voice that chilled me to the bone, promising power beyond my wildest dreams in exchange for my soul. I knew then that I had to act fast, to escape from this nightmare before it consumed me whole. With the last of my strength, I staggered to my feet and fled into the night, leaving behind the darkness that threatened to engulf me. In the days that followed, I tried to put the events of that night behind me, to convince myself that it was all just a figment of my imagination. But deep down, I knew the truth, that evil lurked in the shadows, waiting patiently for its next victim. And so, I write this cautionary tale as a warning to all who dare to seek out the darkness that lies hidden in the world around us. For in the end, It is not the monsters under our beds that we should fear, but the ones that lurk within the depths of our own souls. Thanks for joining me on this harrowing journey and for lending an ear to these tales of terror. If you enjoyed the spine-chilling stories, don't forget to hit that follow and subscribe button for more bone-chilling adventures in the future. Stay safe out there, and may the light always guide you through the darkness.